So the Constitution Hill Human Rights Festival is back. Every year, the Constitution Hill precinct becomes a hive of activism, art, music, even debate, and in celebration then of the people's triumph over injustice in all forms. This year, the festival will take place over 3 days, or is it 4? We'll find out exactly. And it is free, of course, to attend. For more, I'm joined then by Kgosi Gift, who is the Winnie Mandela Expo curator. Thank you so much for your time and joining us. Of course, Bandile Fakude is the festival producer. To both of you, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate it. Bandile, let's kick things off with you, why don't we? Another year, another festival. You have to try and make it better and better and better. What have you brought for us this year?
It's the 7th edition of the Human Rights Festival. And I think how a country builds itself up being leading in social justice issues, international solidarity, gives us more content to actually give to people.
Does the United States give you more content now, considering their fight against us?
Look, I think we are, considering the history of our country, we are leading in issues of social justice and international solidarity. Issues like Palestine last year, where we stood forward and said, not on our watch, and other issues as well. So the Human Rights Festival focuses on that, but also issues that happen around our own spaces. Constitution Hill is not only a World Heritage Site that is a museum, but it's a space of conversation. It's a space of something we call lekgotla. There's a beautiful concept of the constitutional code of how it's built. It's called African Justice Under a Tree, where you just sit and have conversation. It's opened up its space for that. The Human Rights Festival is part of those events, it's part of those programs that we call on everyone around to have their say and bring about people. And it's actually one of public participation program, because we don't sit and choose the programs that are there. There's an open call that people actually apply for to come and do dialogues and workshops and all those kind of things. All of these 60 NGOs that we work with are going to be showcasing their work, but also opening up spaces to talk about the work that they do and their impact in the community.
Oh man, there's so much to actually get into there. But if ever we want to talk about a person who was fighting for social justice in many ways, Winnie Mandela has to be an icon to really be showcased in all of this. Kgosi, you have an exhibition with regards to Winnie Mandela's life. I can't imagine the difficulty in portraying the strength, the wisdom and the leadership of such an incredible woman. How have you done it, and what led to this being the concept of thought?
Look, it's such an interesting process, because you are a cultural practitioner, / a fashion designer. And then you're also an artist. So when I was given the scope to really interrogate Mama Winnie's life and through all of these facets that you're speaking of, it's not as easy as it might seem.
I can imagine.
But I think it also leads to such a big room of imagination. And I think the artist in me is really just allowing himself to go into a more fantastical world, very subjective, but a very more fantastical world, where we really look at the play of the sacrifices, and the worldliness, versus the, I'd say, the disturbance of innocence, perhaps. And when I say that, I mean, there was one statement that she makes when she says, I was the most unmarried person. She speaks of stuff like, I intentionally wore Pan-African clothing to show the oppressors that I'm the oppressed one, right? So all of these little statements I'm taking from interviews, from life events, who just say, Gift, how do you take just the human element, right? There's all of this, she's an activist, she's all of it, so layered. But how do you take the human element and tell a story that could still be subjective, because you're an artist. We know how to say, I'm sorry once we're done, but we don't ask for permission. And I was really blessed for the families, for them giving they go ahead with the pitch that I've submitted, which is a great thing. And I think from there, it's really just inviting South Africa into I guess, my mind, and just translating Mama Winnie as a human being. And trust me, I was moved, I still am, every day of doing research. And as I'm building these different tapestries to kind of tell the story, like you say, it's a challenge. It allows me as an artist to really delve deep into the culture. The Xhosa culture is actually is really, really beautiful. So it's a learning process. I think sometimes I get really nervous because it's big, right?
That's what hasn't even begun, has it? It's only this coming week.
Yeah,
right?
but I'm in studio every day.
So you're already nervous. Right?
Absolutely.
But it's the individuality of the human that you're also trying to portray. Because
very much so.
There's so much to be said about trying to portray Mama Winnie outside of her being the partner to Nelson Mandela. And as you said, with that quote of being the most unmarried married person, that could be just in itself telling the story.
Absolutely.
Right? And that's absolutely massive. And for people to then understand it, that she was a person in her own right. Mm-hmm. Is understanding it, do you think, very difficult just because it can be subjective?
I think, look, everybody experiences human beings differently.
Yes.
I could tell you my cousin is a really good person. I'm inspired by 1, 2, and 3, whereas my dad would say something different. So then already it's a very subjective play. But I think with Umama Winnie, there's already so much that people who would also visit knows. And perhaps for them, as they're seeking familiarity, they're seeking something in this costume that reminds them, oh, Kanene, he's right when he says it. So that in itself is pressure. So I think I've allowed myself this past 2 weeks to really just delve into a place where the artist is awake. And that's the person that says, Mama Winnie, I'm curious about you. And like I said, it's an immersive experience. It's very fantastical, very theatrical. So I do bring in conversations between Kgosi as the artist, wanting to ask or asking Mama Winnie questions. So it's very theatrical, very fantasy. So I'm just hoping to also bring part the humanness and perhaps the not so cute things that the sacrifices she had to make in order for us to enjoy the victory now. So there's a lot of that. I'm moving into really just the human being aspect of it. So that could be wrong or right. Like I said, I'm not asking for permission. I will say I'm sorry if I need to.
It seems like a tough one if you ask me. So just to get this right, it's a set of costumes ultimately looking at her life from childhood right through to adulthood. Is that it?
Absolutely, absolutely. And maybe also just past life. You know, we as African people believe in potling and speaking to our ancestors. Like I said, it's fantasy. It's a conversation between Kgosi and Winnie. There's unanswered questions that I'm hoping to get answers from. I'm also working with amazing Lebo Mashela who will be playing, well, at least her voice would be Winnie Mandela. So it's me as a 12-year-old boy speaking to Mama Winnie, asking her this question. So the answer she's giving is kind of echoing the set or the installation that I'm building.
That's
very
incredible.
fantasy-based. And I think it's important to also bring a very, I don't want to use the word light, it's very deep, but there's a light angle to it that I think would make it so accessible for people to understand from a fantastical world. Because we all know in fantasy lies really beautiful things.
Bandile, so now you have to put all of these things together, curate them all, add them all to this festival, and try and ensure that people get a sense of understanding of all of this. That must be even harder.
Yeah. It's quite an important job, and that is why we partner with people like Gift over here. We've got a whole entire creative hub at Constitution, and we believe in that our message, the message that we send across, cannot also be done through the writings that we do, the interviews that we do, and everything, but also translating it into art. Because art plays a very important role in actually translating issues that we speak about and what we stand about. So
absolutely incredible. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. I think it's absolutely incredible. It's the 7th edition of the Constitution Hill Human Rights Festival. It is back. Kgosi Gift, thank you so much. Bandile Fakude, all the best with it. I wish you guys the best of luck. I'm going to try and make my way. I will try. 3 days, right? 21st to the
21st, 22nd Music Festival, Mandisi Yankees headlining, and then We the People walk on the 23rd.
Sounds like absolutely incredible. Thank you to both of you. Really, really appreciate it.